Hello. Can you hear me all? Yes.
Yes.
I will start. Soheil is in view. First of all, thank you to our hosts to this wonderful festival for inviting us. Thank you for organizing this festival with so many interesting themes, and also for the beautiful posters and promotion you did. It's really excellent. It's really, really well done. So it's good to be here, and it makes us really happy. Such a really highbrow lineup. So thank you for that. Um, we just want to kind of have a little, informal story and an explanation of how we came to starting Noise are Noise, which is a noise label that started in Tehran. So he now lives in Berlin, but that's a new development. He was in Tehran before for the majority of his life. And I'll quickly give you guys a short story of how we started this Iranian experimental noise label called Noise are Noise. So I was first in Iran twice, 2016 and 17. That's when I met Soheil also. And I was at New Media Society for Limited Access Festival, which many of you probably know, curated by our dear friend Amirali Semi. And I was there with a project called Cultural Spaces. That is a project that travels. And it went to India after being in Iran. And then we thought it would be very nice if the project came back to Iran, but not Tehran and Isfahan, where it went before, but maybe Shiraz. Very different kind of a place, wonderful to see. And it's a project about field recordings. So I thought, oh, I can get very different recordings there also. And putting this together was quite challenging. For example, trying to get venues to commit to dates. And these are issues that we did not have with limited access. There's also things that are quite easily, or not easily, but reliably organized by people like Amir Ali. But with Shiraz, it was quite an issue to get dates confirmed because I had to buy a flight ticket, obviously, and take care of all of that. And finally, we had things organized, and then we were having to rent the loudspeakers that we needed in Tehran already. And we packed a big car and we took this very long road trip to Shiraz, very excited. And then ran into so many troubles there because it's quite difficult, as you all know, with the governmental situation for venues to really dare to host a project like that. And I think especially with a foreign artist, and I understand, it's a risk to take. And as we were, preparing in Shiraz to do everything, things were getting canceled. And then we had a confirmation from the University of the Applied Sciences, which would have been amazing to host the project there. And we were there in person, looking at the rooms, preparing everything. And then they called the night before and said, oh, there are tensions with Europe, we have to cancel. And for me, having come this far, also with all the expenses, and all the preparations and work, it was really quite something. And for Soheil, of course, I don't speak Farsi. I'm very sorry. Also, I have a really expensive book, and I don't speak very much Farsi. But Soheil was trying to not have me notice that things were going really wrong. But I could just see him on the phone all the time, very agitated, talking like this, and really being in a state. And then there was a moment of road rage where I thought he was going to kill us in the car. And I was like, what are you doing? I have a child back at home. You cannot kill me. What happened? And then he had to tell me. And in the end, we found a gallery, Motorkone, which is literally located underground, like underneath a parking garage, 20 meters underground. So it's quite figuratively and literally an underground organization. And they helped us and they hosted my work. And so the traveling project could continue. And that was such a saving grace. And it was an amazing experience. And out of this situation, Soheil and I had a lot of conversations of saying it's so tough for people to organize things well, because there's so many limitations. And we thought like what we could maybe do is have kind of a platform and an organization that does not rely on the physical spaces so much, because there's so many amazing artists in Iran, amazing musicians, amazing noise artists, an amazing experimental scene that is having, in some ways, a hard time with their own venues, with being censored, or with possibly even running the risk of being in danger with putting out their work. And also, it's more difficult for them to reach the outside. And so out of that situation, we thought it would be interesting to build a label that can also reach the outside world. Soheil, at this point, you were going to continue, right?
Yes, I have some remarks to add.
Okay, remark. Go away and remark some things.
Yeah, at first, I just, similar to you, I want to say thank you to the people at the Reconnect Festival. They're bringing up these questions and invite people like us when we submit the forms to tell our ideas about or like experience, because maybe there are similar things that is need to be done, and maybe sharing these experiences are good. Yes, I wanted to add about the trip that later on we get to know that there was like something that we didn't know, that we have to have a separate permit because you're not from Iran, and this is the city of Shiraz. It was like a little bit of something of stress that I don't know what's the reason, but more than Tehran. So I prepared a text to read a little bit slower than how I usually talk. But for now, I can like tell that yes, it was 2019. We were already having some collectives. It was not like 24 years ago. And people just like, as I'll let you know, it was like a process that maybe only some labels could come and do this. And there are a lot of differences between what it means to have the noise music in Iran or Southeast Asia and Europe and United States. And I want to like for tonight tell you about experiences that we have about like first this trip. And then about how it's meant to us and why we did this, and maybe like some of the issues that we have, and most importantly, the solutions to them. Not to tell that it was hard, but everything should be hard. So shall we start, Leonie? Are you ready?
Yes, you were gonna specifically, because we want to not in a way, give advice like we know everything, because we really don't. We also need help. But we thought it might be helpful if we talk about specific issues.
Exactly.
And maybe we could solve them, maybe not. But maybe there are some helpful hints for all of you who are trying to organize, not trying to, or very successfully organizing things, but this kind of exchange. So Soheil, take it away. Starting the label, we had issues with the banking system, right?
Yes, I want to buy a 20 euro subscription for publishing for two artists or one artist, 30 or something. It was impossible. Or we don't have the credit card back in Iran, but we're spending monies like this or the more for it for our jobs. So to say how it was first, like with Sina, Shoaei, and Armand, we made some performances and we recorded something like super ambient flat music. I wanted to publish it. Then again, you came to Iran like twice in 2016, 17. One of the time in the school, Miles have failed and his face was like a little bit scarred. And you were like, just before the performance, I realized that you have really paid the price. It's not about the ticket. You're here and you go to your performance. You don't return to Netherlands because of this. Even then your son have fun. So it was good to know you. And by the time it was 2 years after we know you, and I promised you that I would help you make a small tour. But I'm happy that in the end, first, Motor Khune, we could communicate. This is my suggestion to people, to communicate about what we want. And we find the Motor Khune, you have your installation in decent manner. I could take the video about how it's happening. And so and then again, I finished bringing your installation to the city of Yazd. You have to do a lecture in Tehran. By the time you could take the plane, I could go to Yazd. And then again, by the end of the night, we met. I think it means that we neutralized a lot of bureaucracy by being independent. And it was a good experience after all. So then again, how the label is born. I want to like tell in 5 minutes or less. about really the small history, how it happened really. It is impossible to tell about the formation of such artistic currents without speaking about the significant efforts by people like Amir Ali Hassami as one of the people, and Parkingallery by the late 90s, and then again more small initiatives like Sour Seda that was made like as a way in parallel, or like Amir Ali was personally designed the graphics for it, not like a designer, but mostly as a curator, helping like other people to like find each other. I get to know many of the people that are right now active in the field of electronic music in Iran when we were much younger, doing different things, even visuals back in the times. And this is like the last moment that we realized that we haven't seen enough to like start our own collective and tell everybody to join, really confident that I want to do this. So I went to Turkey to pay the 20 euro. I was having a meeting with my friend. I went somewhere to pay this amount of online money, and I came back. We already set the first compilation that we are going to see the video, the photo of the first compilation of the label, and we met each other, and the Shiraz thing happened. Since then, we had like many quarterly compilation. We get in touch, whoever I see that is connected, associated, we ask them to have the compilation. You also spread the call between your friends. I think connection and communication that we made was very important. But then again, there are things like, for punk rock music Iran 20 years ago, one magazine for rock music made calls that were similar to this. They made 2 albums that let many people know each other. So making a community, I think, was the idea, or like how we each of us may sacrifice a little bit of time to in a collective that people are acting the same. So this is how it started. I remember Cedric Fairmont was I realized about his archive about noise artists in Asia, Southeast Asia and Africa, and not the United States and Europe, and how he's also using the data from the database that we make out of artists and help them get more exposure, like people like Cedric. I would like to invite people to like ask about each of this process that they may be interested in into the Q&A session. And I think it is the time for your second part. Yeah, go on.
Yes, because I know we have
time, so don't worry about time. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, good. No, but we should, because otherwise we'll be talking until 9 o'clock, so we can't. We were very strictly practicing this. No, but I think to sum up a little bit what Soheil said, he did a lot of communicating, because one thing was that, it's one thing to build a community, but I think that Soheil also had to earn the trust of a lot of people, where people weren't even quite sure if he, if we were doing something genuine. We had to make sure that people trust that really the platform is there to promote them, not to take from them. That you build something with a sincere intention. Good communication is important for that. Good PR. So we did have, good people also collaborating in terms of, illustrations for the album, stuff like that. Soheil invested a lot in building a proper studio. And he could do that because his mom also supported the cause, with providing her home and space, right? Your common home in Tehran. Soheil's mom is an angel.
Thank you, Mom.
Really, really wonderful. So there was because of the mom support, actually mom believing in our project, she really made sure that Soheil could be there, have the space. So all of that is important. And we were gonna talk a little bit also about one particular album that we released during the protests in 2000. When was that exactly? I had it written down. When all of the awful protests were.
Yeah. Early 2023.
Yeah, the Noise Against Silence. So we had a lot of people contributing. And that also sometimes, we can't even give you guys like a magical solution, but because internet was constantly being shut down during the protests, Soheil had to, because he had the files, mastered in the studio, he had to constantly try to upload the files again and again because the internet kept breaking down. And sometimes, you just have to be very diligent and very patient. And then our communication kept breaking down, and it was many days, I think, just trying to upload the album. And in the end, it worked. right? But trying different VPNs or who knows what, all of you guys know your way around that too, with using different kinds of connections. So that was one thing. And we thought kind of another, or I thought something else that might be maybe helpful to talk about, because we were talking about archiving, is different kinds of methods of archiving. And in a way, I also discussed this with someone I know who's like super knowledgeable in working with computers, internet, web design, programming, but also he has a very good idea globally of how all these structures are working. And I said, hey, for my own work as a musician, how should I back this up? Should I rent like an online cloud? But then, a lot of us don't have that much money. And if you have large data volumes, for example, like all of our albums, or even my own personal work is getting more extensive, as I'm growing old, slowly my work is becoming a mountain. And so I had a good discussion with someone who's very knowledgeable, and he said, don't pay rent every month. It's just a server located somewhere else. And what he suggested is that you get, very good hard drives. Actually, I have 4 like this. The first one even I bought in Iran. And this is a hard drive. It can hold 1 terabyte, which at the moment I'm getting to the limit. I also put like my family pictures and things archived very neatly. But so I have 4 like this, and I do not sync them. So whatever work is finished and ready to archive, I put on here. And I have, different folders for each year, however you organize it, whatever makes sense for you, the way you can find things back. This one you can throw out the window and it doesn't break, and it's waterproof for up to 2 hours. If you were to let it fall into water, which we're in the Netherlands, very handy. We have floods sometimes, but also kind of sandproof. And I keep 2 of these in my house, and I have 1 at my mom's and 1 in Berlin with someone else. And like that, if something happens in my house and 2 of them get destroyed, I have 2 in other locations, and I rotate them to back them up. And they're not synced. Because if you sync them and you mess something up, on the master, then all of them get, when they go online, they get erased. So in a way, it's very old-fashioned. I drag and drop, and I organize them really by hand, but it also isolates them. And it makes the kind of things that we're keeping in a way safe. And of course, as for the label, of course, our Bandcamp is a sort of an archive that we have. It's also good to have a web page, but I think as a backup, and that's just my personal tip for everybody, good old-fashioned hard drive, sturdy one, good quality, and make sure you don't keep them all in the same location in case, there's a fire or flood or something like that. So I think that's it with a tips that we have also, right? Soheil, was there like another? I'm looking at our document that we wrote.
Yeah. Yes, I'm here too. For the case of backup and system, we are, of course, we don't have any issue. We didn't have any issue. We copied it somewhere. But I think this is this have changed since what I've done. Like 20 years ago, we had the GameNet. We have to got SCSI hard disks, RAID, so that they copy on each other. Or these days, things are becoming more and more easy. But Linux computers are right now helping a lot for the album that you mentioned, Noise Against the Silence in Iran. I have to keep 2 computers, and I have to share the mouse and keyboard, like digital virtual KVM software, to work with one of them with the VPN, one of them without the VPN, because some websites would not work with the VPN. They're like internal website, domestic to Iran. So, and it was very tough, just as you mentioned. I have to upload for hours. And in between, like some people, some people would help, like do other things to make this process easier. But some people would think that it's an easy job. It's fun. The mastering was like a story for me. I fly like every day, and it's easy. But it needs a lot of passion. As we were speaking about, like doing something like that, you need to be passionate, have passions, and like be able to act emotionally, also smart, more than tactics or techniques for making for picking up like an AR, good music to sell, or things similar to that. So what do you say? I finished the thing about the difficulties.
We had one more tip. Also, one last tip. I just remembered the time bank tip.
Oh, yeah, yes, we have it.
That's a closing statement, maybe, and then we get questions. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I think, there are different initiatives also in this festival, and regardless of what your field of expertise is, and for Soheil and me, it's music, noise, sound. What's really handy if you're trying to organize yourself, especially if it's on a budget, is if you get people involved who have different skills, maybe an illustrator, because you can be a great musician and maybe even a great organizer, but you might need a nice poster. You might need someone who's good at PR, things like that. So if you can have a circle of people with different skills, you have to make sure everybody benefits. And something that can work, for example, is a time bank. We actually haven't done this exactly, but I've seen it working with some organizations around. And in a time bank, you can put in hours of work and then you get credit. So for example, let's say your initiative is dance. You're a small dance company and you put on shows, and maybe someone is helping out with a promotion and she puts in 3 hours of PR into the time bank. Then someone else, maybe one of the dancers, can give, or a couple of the dancers can give her 3 hours of dance lessons. So whatever skills the people have, they can put in, but they can get something back from someone else. So you kind of build like a credit, and then you can choose from a different service. And that can be something that's really helpful so that people don't feel used, and so that everybody gets something out of it. If you're in a situation where, you don't have government support and a budget to pay everybody as you're getting things started, it's good to kind of have this sort of exchange of services in a fair way. And that is called a time bank. Maybe all of you guys know this, I don't know, but I saw it like working around here in The Hague. They do this, and it can be quite effective. And I think that was our last comment of the day, right?
Yeah, but there's one thing here in the end that we didn't cover in the way. It is mostly about why we are doing this, than how that we are doing. Maybe the last point, I think,
Okay.
for us, that yes, what are we? Why are we doing this? It is difficult, and I mean the archive. My experience of making an archive is that for making money, to have the studio equipment, I was working for a while for the Contemporary Music Festival or the Jazz Cafe, and there my job was to make an archive, and I was becoming so much interested. Right now in Berlin, this is a very important part of my job. Just as of now, there's a concert happening in 4-meter distance of me. I record the multi-track versions, and some of them needs mixing, some of them we just provide to them. But I have a large hard disk. I think it's very important. It's a heritage. It's something that holds a lot of information. Maybe the whole system of live stage sounding would change. So I was picky as an Iranian 90s guy born in early 80s. I was used to have this material, like MP3 files, FLAC files to listen to. So I think having an archive is a way of showing commitment to what have happened, or having some value for it. It's one hard disk. It's like 100 euros, 50 euros for each season, each year. I'm enjoying to do this process.
Good point, Soheil. I think, yes, the archive is really important. And that's, of course, it's good. Soheil is also keeping, physical archive.
Yes, here.
With our online archive, which is on Bandcamp, but should all of that collapse, and we still have the good old hard drive to look at later. And I think it's important because it's in a way also building history and, building community and highlighting people that are not in the mainstream, and holding that for later also. I think you're right, Soheil. It's really nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we were super lucky because the way we kept something working, even though we both have caught a cold. Yes,
almost. I was with the flu also. Sorry,
yeah.
I have my tea, my flu tea.
But yeah, I'm happy that I put myself through something like this that works on system trust and energy giving to something that can work right now for itself. It's very important that if something is independent, it can work out without me being there, certainly yeah, or for sure. If I'm not there, of course, like other people should be, but it would not stop it from happening in case I go for a trip. I'm working for those days that things are even more independent, and right now I'm trying to do the similar thing that I do in Iran, to do like some bits of more work to be able to pay for a few of expenses, if any. But it's so nice to know that after 5 years with Leonie, we had like different journeys. We traveled to many places, did a lot of things. But for the Iran India album that was composed by you, and we didn't have a label to publish them by the time. I finally see the day that the album was on the label in the form of like CDs or like on tape cassettes. I'm happy that we did this together, and I don't want to tell about the surprises. They're going to hear people from on the label are going to like hear something between Tehran and Berlin. I think the soundscapes. These are like surprises, but let's tell them.
But maybe later, right? Yeah. We have albums planned for the coming year and things to do, and it's gonna be good. But should we see if our wonderful audiences have any comments, maybe questions, complaints? I don't know if anyone would like to say anything.
So for questions, if you use the raise hand button or just write it in the chat, all are great. I wonder if you guys can, I mean, you did a bit, but can speak to what kind of artists are you, like the range of artists are you presenting in the label that you're having? And I know you mentioned a bit, but I'm interested in the range of artists. What kind of like musics, what kind of music sound are there? But also I don't want, like, if you know you don't have permission to name names, just like, you know, just tell us what kind of music or sound. Yeah, thank you.
That's a good question. So it really started out, the first compilations, with kind of noise music. I don't know if that tells you something. You know, it's so quite electronic, very, very experimental. And I felt like that is and was a very good focus. And in the end, things got a bit broader. And Soheil and I have had actually a lot of discussions about the fact, like, how broad should this be? Because I feel like, you know, that we started this with the intention to really give Iranian artists a platform, because the European artists are quite spoiled with having a lot of opportunities comparatively. Soheil is laughing because I was getting strict in between a few times, but I was like, really,
it really took a while.
You don't need Berlin techno on there also, you know, like we need to have like a focus. But because there's like an amazing noise scene in Iran, and most of the artists are, I think the majority is from Tehran, probably. Soheil, a lot.
No, we can't say. There are in other cities.
That's a good one. Other cities. I think one album maybe that you can say a few words about is the Blind City one that we released recently, which was really important.
I think it's good to mention that as a label, we tag the music. We say what music is that and what music is this, not with directly telling the styles in the same or like some genres. But I believe that it was very difficult, not difficult, but it took time to clarify how we want to be both experimental electronic and contemporary classical. And what's in between? How come is that you're experimental electronic and classical contemporary?
That's where I had some criticism, because I felt like classical, okay.
But I found it. But I'm happy that you delivered like a criticism. Otherwise, I would never even question myself.
Let's talk about the Blind City.
Yes, I really want to do that.
I think we should mention that album right now. That was important because I felt like musically it didn't. At first, I had question mark musically. It's very nice, very, very nice. But I was like, oh, this is maybe even a bit conventional. However, conceptually, it was very important. Tell us about it. And I'm really glad that we have it on the label. I'm very glad about it.
Yeah, you know, Dr. Shahab Jafari has a doctorate, PhD in art history, and he studied composition with some of the masters of electroacoustic classical music compositions. The thing is that when I received the work, I already received two electroacoustic music albums that are less like instrumental or like not a quartet, like piano, electronic. I was waiting to publish, but this album has more message. First, it was the story of a very bad beast that came to a peaceful city and blind everybody. It is the story that happened 200 years ago, something ago, in the city of Kerman, when one of the Qajar dynasty kings made a war, like they blinded all of the people in city of Kerman. Shahab was, in a way, I believe, questioning the whole fact that why a lot of people may know Kerman over this terrible, super scary incident. And why not? Because of a lot of other things that we have, including this album. And I'm making this, and it has some more connotations that I don't want to reach to, but there are some more incidents in the contemporary history, like very recent years, I don't want to mention at all, that some people lost their ears here and there. Like, I mean, like in Iran and somewhere else. So it was a little bit about something that's happening, a bad force that is coming and blind people. And because sight is really associated with experience in life and a little bit of sense of touch. I think this was one of the intentions. I totally liked it. I took help, as you mentioned, from friends that studied music for the teaser. And I'm happy that, this album went to the press and received very good reception so far.
Yes, a lot of attention. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see that for Aydin Mufakham's current album, The Abjad Dream. This is something that we have. I invite everybody to go and watch, listen. We have the half of it on pre-order Bandcamp mostly right now, but I think Aydin Mofakham is a composer that we should definitely take very serious. After
he's a fantastic composer. Yeah.
Yes, I listened.
And his wife Martina will also have an album released this year, right?
Martina have another album to be released with us. Both of them have another album with me.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting. The times are like, I would not tell about the name or like contents right now. So is there any more questions? So the genre is the experimental electronic, contemporary classical, but if it's not commercial or mainstream, they're in. If they're not.
Yeah, great. Very good. Very good.
I think Nima has a hand up.
Well, thank you so much for the talk. It was great to hear your experience outside of Iran. I have a quick question. How do you ensure the safety and security of the artists who you collaborate with, specifically the ones who reside inside Iran? I know it's different in the music scene and art scene, performance scene, I mean, and I feel there is less restrictions and less control on the musicians, underground musicians, but I'm curious when you collaborate with people who are inside Iran, how do you prioritize their safety and security?
That's a really good question. Can I say something, as I have one thought, and then you say something, Soheil? So we've had, some albums being released, like The Noise Against Silence. That was during the protests. So maybe you're referring to that. And we worked for a very long time on the text for the release, because it's artists also from Iran, to where, in a way, we're clearly stating the intention of the album. And I don't, it's been a couple of years, but we were so careful to not directly speak against the government. Like, we had to say it in a way like through a flower.
Can I add?
Not make it pretty, but we worked back and forth on the text. So I was also said, no, this we cannot publish. We cannot put anybody at risk. At the same time, we want to be clear. With Noise Against Silence, the title speaks for itself, but we could not point a finger, and we were really, really like working on the text forever to just get it right,
The tag word is that we tried very hard to separate the governmental politics with something that is about humanity, and the fact that, yes, we are not cowards. it's very important that we prove this as we're like we want to really make everybody sure. I mean, not cowards. If I travel to Germany twice or 3 times during the year that is revolution happening in my country, I'm not going to write very big words on the statement of the album that my friends, the university.
No.
Yes, we're not going to do that. But I think writing about humanity, I can always tell that everybody should be free. People should not be arrested on like the false charges. Similar
But
to
we weren't even that specific. I think that we really were more expressing what we want rather than what we don't want.
but artists could
And
choose.
also with our New Year's album, wishing everybody and all the women physical safety rather than saying, don't do this, don't do that. It's like all in the wording. So we're spending a lot of time on the text to where it's very clear we're sending a humanitarian message, but not in a way that you can take the text and say, I'm going to arrest this and that person. Like, I don't know, Nima, if that answers your question. Because, it's online what is happening. So, we're not so much responsible for like holding physical events in Iran or things like that. That's maybe apart from that when Soheil was still there. But we're trying to have a kind of very clean online presence, but that has a strong humanitarian and connective message.
At least nobody could cancel us because I was working for it. Yeah. I was really working another shift for it. So, but I think it made a little bit of money, that album, for some subscriptions of the label for like some weeks. But if we make a lot of more money, it would be more, it would be trouble. I don't want the label to make a lot
We're
of money.
poor, right?
Yeah, this is enough to pay for subscription. Yeah, good. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, you answered.
All right.
Yes.
So if there is any other question, yeah. So Armand says, I attended your lecture. It got me wondering how effective is Bandcamp for long-term archiving and organizing music, especially for labels?
I was wondering the same thing this morning, Armand. I had this question in my mind because I thought, can I give advice on this solidly? What do you think? So, if Bandcamp, for example, Finale, this big music notation program recently, like a lot of composers rely on it. I don't. I switched already. Suddenly they go out of business. All the composers cannot make their score anymore. That's the thing. I think, and that's why we were talking about the hard drive, I would not use it as only that. Soheil, I think it's important that each album we have backed up individually, all of the tracks, text, and images, that in case Bandcamp goes bankrupt or they don't want to do it anymore, that we're not lost, right, Soheil? But of course, we hope it will stay. It seems
Bandcamp,
solid.
I think Bandcamp was bought. The company was sold to a game company, and everybody finds some plugins to download all of the archive that they have already. But if there would be no Bandcamp, everything, the titles, all of the metadata of the albums are saved on databases like Discogs, like Last.fm. Those are not the databases that easily vanish, and we can have the exportable backup. They have APIs. You can call the APIs and get the releases from all of the artists of the label. Yeah. So we're not.
You would need warning in advance. Let's say they were to go away. You could take down what you have on there, and then still you would put it on the back.
I know all of them. In case if it's about the title of the albums, I typed them like 10 times. All of these artists, I copied paste their names more than themselves when they're sleeping. Right now that I'm here, something but I have an exportable XML file and coding a little bit. Maybe it helps. The coding, I'm not alone. I have only 10 fingers on my hands. So are there any more questions?
But I think, Soheil, we agree Bandcamp is great and reliable, but it's good if it's not your only backup, correct?
Yes, we publish on SoundCloud excerpt, not to put the high quality file of something that is usually a performance.
But the things you really want to keep is always good to have it in multiple places.
I already have 5 backups.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
Arman, so Soheil and I, with our high level of personal paranoia, are backing up manically in multiple ways. I think you can't go wrong if you have a personal archive that means a lot to you, that you sort of insure it privately a bit. But I think Bandcamp seems very reliable. I think also, like Soheil said, if they were to go out of business, you would be able to get your things down on time. It's unlikely that it would simply suddenly be gone, but you would have to stay on top of it and make sure that if something happens with Bandcamp, if it shuts down or gets sold, that you download all of your content on time.
But everybody really knows everything about how to distribute music, like a label. Teach us something in case you don't have questions. We are really looking forward for your suggestions for the label. What are your suggestions if there's no questions?
Yeah. Is there any suggestions or other questions?
Well, in terms of suggestions, we can talk later how we can provide a platform if you want to expand your collaborations in terms of supporting artists to work with your label or some things like that. Just as a suggestion.
Yeah, double thumbs up for sure.
All right.
That sounds good.
Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Is there any other things that you want to mention? Okay,
No.
So I want to thank you so much, Leo and Soheil, for this amazing presentation. Thank you very much. I want to thank everybody. So I'm gonna hand it to Sharayer for her last part of the session. Thank you.
Thank you.